Hi, my name is Lena, and this is my Week 7 multimedia project. I chose 4 articles to read this week, 2 looking at budget and decision making, and 2 looking at ethics. I chose these articles because they looked interesting, and I will be able to use them all in my critical assignment. The first article I chose is from the Shaffer's book and is by Charles Levine. The main thing to take from Levine's article is that government does not have economic growth that is abundant and continuous and unlimited. So therefore, responsible managers need to be able to manage an organizational decline and budget cuts wisely. So first, look at the cause of the decline. Is it internal or external? Is it political or economic? An example of a political external problem would be a short-term crisis such as a hurricane. Funds are only needed for so long, so after the problem is resolved well enough, programs related will lose the public's interest and will no longer be capture points, as he calls them. Next, look at strategic choices for making decisions about budget cuts or program termination. So he lists the 5 most common used cutback methods as seniority, hiring freeze, even percent cuts across the board, productivity criteria, and zero-based budgeting. In the supporting article that I chose by Dutton and Jackson, they agree with all the points of his theory for decision making, but these two say that also decision makers need to go a step further and consider, is the decision linked to a threat or an opportunity? The difference will greatly impact the details of the decision. Now, I believe both articles were very relevant for modern day application. COVID-19, for example, is a problem depletion. Programs are being cut as we speak, cut and eliminated. But the realization at the time of onset for COVID-19 was that it was a threat to the people, and that did determine how the government budgeted funds to address the crisis. My next article from the Shaffer's book was by Carol Lewis, and Lewis explains how a public manager relies on common sense for making ethical decisions. And while this is a good tactic for routine problems, it's only as good as the character of the decision maker. So she goes on to explain that philosophy is the expert in ethics. And unfortunately, there was a study that revealed that ethics was declining in college students, and as far as developing like a meaningful philosophy on life. And it went from 3/5 of the student body in 1976 to 2/5 of the student body in 1989. She wrote this article in 1991, so it was pretty current at the time of the article. Based on this study, Lewis points out that new recruits into public service are unlikely to bring a philosophical proficiency with them into public administration. So since common sense isn't going to be solely the best approach anymore, Lewis breaks down 2 other ethical approaches, deontological and teleological. The deontological approach can be seen in the Golden Rule, the Bill of Rights, and the teleological is a results-based approach. So it's deeply embedded in American culture. Now, she ends the article by summing up that public administrators are going to have to use both, and we still need common sense and philosophy to justify the reasoning behind which approach we take as public administrators. So next, I read a supporting article by Kernahan, and he goes into much detail discussing ethics and principles and values in public servants. But he emphasizes the importance for organizations to create and define their values with a value statement. This sets the tone to make sure that all employees are on the same page, and it does address, Lewis's concern for the character and common sense of, one specific individual. I believe these theories are important and are applied daily in public administration, especially when it comes to war. So take, for example, the dilemma that we're looking at right now with Ukraine. Ethics is going to be a factor when the U.S. is making decisions on if or how we're going to show any type of support. So here is a list of my references. And thank you for listening, and God bless.